you saw the actual shooting of Lauren Kanarek, correct?
Yes.
Did you previously tell
Is this after lunch? Because I rewound it. Because I see they're still in session. Sorry I'm late. I was on the phone with this interview. Did I miss anything good? Hey, did I miss anything or same stuff? Why'd they take a break again? Hey, sorry I was late. What did I miss? Because I rewound it a little, but they're still, looks like they're still in break. What happened? Why are they on break again? Why are they on break again? I don't get it. They just came back from lunch.
In the beginning, probably the fifth line down of that second main paragraph. Is that a paragraph of your statements to the police? That's you speaking? It says RG in the left-hand side.
Yeah, I'm just trying to read it real quick.
I'm going to direct you to where you need to read. I'm just asking.
Yeah,
you.
that's my paragraph.
So that's you speaking there, right?
Yes.
And about the fifth line down, do you see on the left column where it says shot at me?
Yes.
Does it say shot at me? I kind of ran in the house, and then he started coming in as well. I didn't run. I didn't run in the house, just, because the incident was going on. I didn't know what to do. I ducked in the house, and then I realized, like, what the hell am I doing? And I kind of turned around.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
So did you actually go inside the house or not?
I dove in the house.
How far into the house did you go?
It was a very small room. I dove far enough I felt like I was protected from the shots being fired at me. I just wanted to get behind cover.
So what did I miss? What happened? Okay, I guess the judge isn't back yet. They just got back from lunch. Why all these breaks? Don't know what's adulting. So the interview is set for 8 o'clock tonight, Central Time. Crazy, crazy case. Oh, it still hasn't come back? Hey, Up in Smoke. I think he is having tea with the prosecutor. Whoop. Oh, you don't think they're back from break? Oh, all right. So what I rewound is actually the end of the trial?
Fine. We have 2 jurors. Okay, very good. I'm just going to ask you two to remain in place, if you would, because I just want to speak to you a little bit further with the attorneys, okay? The rest of the jurors, you can go enjoy your lunch, and we'll see you around 1:30 this afternoon.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So we didn't miss anything then. Good. All right, good. We didn't miss anything. I was like, oh no. Why is it not working? Trying to charge my phone via computer. Trust. Why do I need to enter my password to charge my phone? Apple is so weird. I guess they're talking to the jurors. I hate this judge. Does anyone else hate this judge? Because I do. So Law and Crime Network have 1,200 people watching, and they can't even chat. They need to spread their wings and come over here. So I just want to for the newbies, I just want to let you guys know the reason why I'm not giving too many details on the interview tonight, because my haters like to contact the people that I interview before I interview them. So that's why I can't really give much info, because my haters suck and that's what they do. It's happened a couple of times. So I have to be very secretive about who I'm interviewing until it happens. And I'm sorry for that. You just got to trust me. It's going to be a great interview. And if you're a Patreon, I'm going to put it in Patreon. Haters are vermin. I agree. Sarah, right? Like, they've blown interviews for me by contacting them. And yeah, I'm not having that again. So now I'm just quiet. Hey, Haley. I know, exactly, Air. And it sucks that I have to be like that. Like, I should be able to tell everybody who I'm interviewing. Nope, not my haters. I have an interview tonight for the mother of a missing kid who's heartbroken, and I don't blame her. So that chat on Law and Crime, I think judge complained. Most comments I did see was against a judge. 8 o'clock Central Time. It's going to be a good interview. Hey, Toxic. If you got haters, you do. Oh, I got way too many haters. Way too many haters. I don't know why either. I mean, I kind of do, but... I mean, I'm just under the theory, if you don't like somebody, don't watch them. It's that simple. I don't watch people I don't like. Yeah, it's going to be a good one, Sarah. I just spoke to her for an hour. Court starting, I'm right here. Oh.
Some additional witnesses this afternoon, and the first witness who will testify this afternoon, the state will seek to admit or submit that witness as an expert. So I just want to give you a charge. I know you've heard this before in my opening comments, but it seemed like an opportunity.
Ooh, we got an
to
expert.
reread that charge to you. It's not overly long on expert testimony. And this applies not only to the next witness, but perhaps another witness this afternoon, and then likely witnesses next week. So as a general rule, ladies and gentlemen, witnesses can testify only as to facts known by them. This rule ordinarily does not permit the opinion of a witness to be received as evidence. However, an exception to this rule exists in the case of an expert witness who may give his or her opinion as to any matter in which he or she is versed and which is material to the case. In legal terminology, an expert witness is a witness who has some special knowledge, skill, experience, or training that is not possessed by the ordinary juror, and who thus may be able to provide assistance to the jury in understanding the evidence presented and determine the facts in the case. In this case, expert witnesses may be called by the state and the defendant, and as I said, the state does intend to call at least one and possibly two witnesses this afternoon who they will offer as expert witnesses. Please bear in mind that you are not bound by such experts' opinions, but you should consider each opinion and give it the weight to which you deem it is entitled, whether that be great or slight, or you may reject it. In examining each opinion, you may consider the reasons given for it, if any, and you may also consider the qualifications and credibility of the expert. It is always within the special function of the jury to determine whether the facts on which the answer or testimony of an expert is based actually exist. The value or weight of the evidence, strike that, let me rephrase. The value or weight of the opinion of the expert is dependent upon and no stronger than the facts on which it is based. In other words, the probative value of the opinion will depend upon whether from all the evidence in the case you find that those facts are true. You may, in fact, determine from the evidence in this case the facts that form the basis of the opinion are true, or not true, or are true in part only. And in light of such findings, you should decide what effect such determination has upon the weight to be given to the opinion of the expert. Your acceptance or rejection of the expert opinion will depend, therefore, to some extent on your findings as to the truth of the facts relied upon. The ultimate determination of whether or not the state has proven defendant's guilt beyond a reasonable doubt is to be made only by the jury. All right, with that charge, Mr. Shellhorn, can you call your witness, please?
Yes, Your Honor. The state will call Detective Andreas Zaharopoulos.
All right, Detective Zaharopoulos, please. Well, Detective, please remain standing. Place your left hand on the Bible. Please raise your right hand and listen to my court clerk administer the oath.
Do you swear in the presence of Almighty God that the testimony you give to this court regarding this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Andreas Zaharopoulos, Zaharopoulos.
Thank you.
All right, please be seated. Please keep your voice up. If you don't understand a question, Detective, please indicate that, and I'll have counsel rephrase.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Shellhorn, you have some photographs you want to address first?
That's right, Judge. The photos are marked as S261 through S269. I don't believe there's any objection to the admission of those into evidence, as well as S340 and S341.
That's correct, Judge. I have no objection.
Those photographs will be accepted into evidence by the court and can be displayed to the jury during the detective's testimony. And for the record, those are State's Exhibit 261 through 269, State's Exhibit 340 and 341, all entered into evidence. Please proceed, Mr. Shellhorn.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective, can you please reintroduce yourself to the jury and tell them where you work?
My name is Detective Andreas Zaharopoulos, and I currently work for the Morris County Sheriff's Office.
What is your current rank and assignment?
I am a detective in the Crime Scene Investigation Unit.
Approximately how long have you been assigned to that unit?
Approximately 6 years.
Have you ever held any other positions or assignments with the Sheriff's Office?
Yes.
What was that?
When I first was hired, I was assigned to the Protective Services Unit, which is here in the courthouse.
I'm going to ask you some questions about your qualifications. Can you tell the jury about your level of education?
I have a bachelor's degree from the University of Rutgers.
And do you have any specialized training with regard to crime scene investigation?
Yes.
What was that?
When I was first assigned to the crime scene unit, I attended the state police crime scene school, which is approximately 6 weeks. And after that, throughout the years, I've attended numerous courses.
Do you have any specialized training with respect to shooting analysis and reconstruction?
Yes.
Can you give the jury a summary of that training?
I've taken basic shooting reconstruction as well as advanced shooting reconstruction, so approximately 120 hours of training solely on shooting analysis and reconstruction.
Have you ever instructed any courses with respect to crime scene or crime scene investigation?
Yes.
Have you ever investigated any shooting incidents during the course of your career as a detective?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury approximately how many shooting incidents you've investigated?
I have been to approximately 60 different shooting incidents, 30 of which I have investigated.
Meaning that you were the primary investigator?
Correct.
Can you tell the jury, when you say a shooting incidents, what type of incidents that would include?
I've responded to anything from accidental discharges to suicides, attempted homicides, with accidental discharges being law enforcement or people inside their own homes.
Can you define the term shooting reconstruction? What does that mean?
It's an analysis of a shooting scene.
And what are you attempting to do in that analysis?
We determine through evidence at a scene, we determine to try to find from where a projectile was fired from.
What's a projectile to the common person?
A bullet.
Are there any principles you follow in conducting a shooting reconstruction?
We use the scientific methods, mathematics, physics, to try and determine a path of a projectile.
Are there limits on what you can determine?
Yes.
Judge, at this point, I would like to offer Detective Zaharopoulos as an expert in the field of shooting reconstruction.
All right. Counsel, do you have any questions as to the qualifications?
No, Judge.
All right. Do you have any objection to Detective Zaharopoulos being qualified as an expert in shooting reconstruction?
No, Judge.
All right, very well. I've listened to the qualifications of the detective, and I do find pursuant to Rule 702 that he is an expert witness in the area of shooting reconstruction based on his education and training, as well as experience in investigating 60 shooting incidents and 30 as the primary investigator. So he is qualified as an expert and will be allowed to render his opinion pursuant to Rule 702 of the New Jersey Rules of Evidence. Go ahead, Mr. Shellhorn.
Thank you, Your Honor. Detective, when you respond to a shooting incident to undertake a shooting reconstruction, what type of evidence do you begin by looking for?
We look to see if there's anything potentially casings that we might find, defects, whether it be into a window, a car, a door, a house, anything like that where we can find any type of defect.
Does the surface or material that's involved with the defect have any impact on your reconstruction?
Yes.
Can you explain that?
Well, each surface responds differently to force. If you have, I would expect that a projectile would perforate a drywall. I wouldn't expect it to go through brick. Glass is another thing that a projectile could go through.
Are there any particular tools that you use in conducting your reconstruction?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury what some of the tools are?
Typically, in shooting reconstruction, we utilize flight path rods, angle finders, protractors, lasers.
What's a flight path rod?
It's approximately 18 inches in length. A rod made out of either fiberglass or metal that we use to put through or into a defect to determine the flight path or the angle of a projectile.
And for those people who may not remember what a protractor is from elementary school, can you remind us?
It's a measuring instrument used to measure angles.
Now, I want to draw your attention back to August 7th of 2019. Were you working for the sheriff's office on that day?
Yes.
Were you working in your capacity as a crime scene investigation unit detective?
Yes.
Do you remember what shift you were working that day?
I believe I was working the morning shift.
Would that continue through into the afternoon?
Correct, 8 to 4.
Now, how does, in general, CSI typically become involved in an investigation?
We are a supporting agency. We support and respond to any municipality within Morris County or the prosecutor's office if they require our assistance for a particular crime scene.
Is the only thing you do as a member of CSI shooting reconstruction, or do you undertake other aspects of crime scene investigation?
I have other assignments within the unit.
Now, specifically on August 7th of 2019, do you recall if you were made aware of a shooting incident at 411 West Mill Road in Washington Township?
Yes,
Did you go to that address?
I did.
Do you remember approximately what time you arrived?
I believe somewhere around 3 o'clock, possibly just after 3.
Were there other members of CSI present at various times during that investigation?
Yes.
What was your assignment or responsibility with respect to this investigation?
My assignment was to conduct the shooting reconstruction, as well as to utilize a video camera and document the scene.
How was that role or responsibility determined?
Through our supervisors and the different officers on scene, we get together who was going to do what task.
Do you recall what the weather was like that afternoon?
On my approach to the scene, I was transporting our command trailer, and it was downpouring on my approach to the scene.
Now, you mentioned taking video. Can you just explain that process to the jury?
Typically, our video cameras, we place an SD card inside, and then I, as I approach the scene, just video tape the outside of the home, and then I went inside and videotaped the interior side of the house as well.
Do you do that before or after taking photos?
That is conducted after we take photographs.
Do you do the video before or after collecting evidence?
Before.
What's the reason for that sequence?
The purpose of videotaping is just like photography. Initially, you want to document the scene as is without disturbing anything.
Did you actually take a video in this case?
Yes.
And after you did that, did you then turn your attention to the shooting reconstruction?
Yes.
Before I ask you questions specifically about that, did you have other involvement in this case on the following day, August 8th?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury briefly what your responsibilities were on August 8th?
We were requested to respond for the prosecutor's office to photograph the home as well as the barn house for any potential evidence. And while I was at the farmhouse, I utilized metal detectors to look for casings, or one casing that we were believed to be on scene.
Did you also take some photos of the various areas you just discussed while you were there that day?
Correct.
So, taking your attention back to August 7th, 2019, how did you begin your shooting reconstruction?
I took my own camera and began photographing the primary scene of where the shooting took place with the first defect, which was the door.
Can you remind the jury what you were looking for as initial evidence?
I was advised by Detective Bailey, who was the crime scene detective for CSI, and that he had located 2 projectile casings on the gravel driveway. And with that, I also had it up. I observed the defect on the door, and that's how I determined a start point for my analysis.
Is your focus in conducting a reconstruction on determining who shot the gun?
No.
Did you observe any bullet defects in the farmhouse?
In the farmhouse?
Yes. Can you tell the jury where you observed those defects?
The first defect was on the door. Then inside this laundry room area, there was a black mat that was hanging. There was like a ricochet or a graze to it, and then there was an exit defect on the window behind it.
Did you take photos of all those defects?
Yes.
What's the process that you go through with examining each separate defect?
Each defect is photographed. Then I looked at them one-to-one with ruler up against it just to get the correct, accurate measurements of each defect. And then from there, I started using the flight path rod to determine an angle of it.
Now, before we discuss the specifics of the conclusions that you reached, were you able to reach any conclusions with respect to those bullet defects?
Yes.
What did you conclude?
I concluded that the projectile in the defect to the door was from the outside going in, and I also determined a certain angle up and down and left to right as to how it entered the door.
Did you document those conclusions in a report?
Yes.
And I'm going to draw your attention to the screen. I'm going to show you what's been marked as S389 in evidence. Detective, what is S389 a diagram of?
It's a diagram of the farmhouse.
And is this a fair and accurate diagram based on your involvement in the investigation on August 7, 2019?
Yes.
You had mentioned earlier that you were aware of some casings that were located.
Correct.
Can you tell the jury what a casing is?
The casing is where from a projectile, when you fire a weapon, the projectile, the bullet exits from the front of the barrel. The casing, whether it's a semi-auto or a revolver, in a semi-auto, it ejects either a certain way. In a revolver, it stays within the cylinder of the weapon.
So the casing is the piece that's left over after the bullet is
Correct.
fired. And do you see the approximate location where those casings were found on this diagram, S389?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury where those are?
They are the square, yellow squares in front of the red pickup truck.
And they're labeled as MCSO item number 9 and MCSO item number 8?
Correct.
And does that diagram fairly and accurately depict the area where those casings were when you were there on that day?
I believe so, yes.
Where was the first defect that you indicated that you observed on the farmhouse?
It was on the door by the patio.
And where is the door on S389?
To the bottom right of the house.
All right, I'm going to ask you to look at S.
Notice the judge says absolutely nothing when the prosecution talks. Nothing. Only when defense. But all these witnesses are perfect when the prosecution talks. This judge is such a dick.
261. What's S261 a picture of?
It is the photo of the door.
And where was the defect on the door?
It is to the right middle glass pane.
So to the right of that, the pane to the right of that piece of paper that says notice on it?
Correct.
What was the condition of the glass on the door?
It had shattered.
What is S262 a picture of?
It's a close-up of the same window.
And what is S263 a picture of?
It's a close-up of the defect.
And is this picture taken on the exterior of the door?
Exterior, yes.
Was there any difference in the glass on the exterior or outside of the door from the glass on the interior or the inside of the door?
There was a difference.
Can you explain to the jury what the difference was?
In a shooting, especially when it comes to glass, you can determine the entrance and exit of a defect. The backside or the exit.
I just got to say this for anyone that has family members that are cops. Orly, you claim you're a lawyer. Please tell me when a cop became an expert witness. Wouldn't an expert witness be a glass person? Someone that deals with glass? Cops are not expert witnesses. Why is the judge saying that the cop is an expert witness? He's not an expert witness. He doesn't even have a fucking bachelor's degree. So yeah, this is getting worse and worse by the minute.
Side of the defect produces a cone-shaped or a crater. when the force of the projectile striking the glass forces the glass on the inside to basically shatter outwards, causing that crater, and it has a rough surface.
And did that help you determine the entrance and exit sides of the window?
Yes.
What is S264 a picture of?
It's a photograph of the interior laundry room.
And do you see the bullet defect that you were just discussing in this picture, but from the inside now?
Correct.
Can you describe where it is for the jury?
It's to the left now of the door, on the left side of the window.
So between that pink striped piece of fabric and the piece of paper hanging in the middle of the door?
Correct.
Were there any other bullet defects that you observed or located inside this room?
There was one, it was like a scrape or on the matting, and then the exit, which is on the window to the left.
Judge, I don't anticipate having to ask the detective to get up and down, but just so he can make clear where, it's hard to see on this picture where the second defect is, if he could just get down and point it out on the two screens.
Sure. We're giving up on the laser pointer?
I gave up on it, Judge. We gave it a week.
You can walk over there, detective.
Detective, if I could ask you, if you could first point out where the bullet defect is in the door. Okay, and then if you could next point out the approximate area where the defect is on that mat.
I believe somewhere, I forget where, but it was somewhere along this area.
And can you see the defect you referred to as the third defect in this picture?
Right up here.
Okay. Judge, I think everyone in the
All right,
gallery.
everybody see that? All right, everyone see it? All right, very good. Everyone's nodding their heads.
You only have to do it once, Judge. Thank you. Detective, what's S265 a picture of?
That is from the interior side, the door window.
And S266?
It's a close-up of the defect.
Detective, is there any significance to the pattern in the glass around the defect?
This breaking of the glass has different fracturing, and you have radial, concentric, and concordial fracturing.
And what does that tell you?
The first type of fractures you get in a shooting scene of glass is radial fractures. Those are, if you see from where the opening is or the defect itself, how the lines radiating outwards, linear, like straight out, those are the radial fractures. They are the first fractures that occur when a projectile strikes glass.
What about the other types of fractures?
The other fractures that you see basically going in almost circular around it are the concentric fracturing, and then just where the defect is broken right there is the concordial fracture or the beveling.
And is there any significance to those fractures?
The concentric is just, they occur after the radial fracturing, and then the concordial is the smoothest or it bevels.
Now, what is the material to the left of the glass in this picture?
That was the vinyl wood combination of the paneling of the door.
And it appears to be broken in this picture?
Correct.
Were you able to determine, or did that have any significance to your reconstruction?
Yes.
Can you explain that to the jury?
In this situation, because the size of the defect, you couldn't have a perfect angle with the flight path rod to stay in place. However, with the correlation of the other defects, I was able to get the flight path of the defect.
So if you only had this bullet defect by itself, would you have been able to determine a flight path?
No.
All right, directing your attention back to S264, you indicated there was a defect on that black matting.
Yes.
And what is S267 a picture of?
That's the ricochet of the defect as it passed through.
And can you identify it in this picture by the location it is on the picture, as well as if there's anything to identify the general area?
If you see right in the middle of the photo, there's the threading is slightly disturbed.
And is it discolored in any way in that area?
It's a little bit white.
I'm going to show you another angle of that defect. Is that a picture? Is that picture labeled as S268?
Yes,
Can you identify in S268 where the bullet defect is?
right there in the middle of the matting where you see the thread sticking out slightly.
What is that in the background of the picture that's somewhat blurry?
That is the exit defect.
And that was the window on the other side of the room?
Correct.
Now I'm showing you what's been marked as S264 again. Did you take some close-up photos of the third defect on the left-hand side?
Yes,
What is S269 a picture of?
that is the exit defect from the inside of the laundry room.
And can you tell the jury anything about the nature of this defect?
With that, you can see to the top left of your screen, you have the radial fracturing, and then you have the concordial fracturing.
When you were back at the scene on August 8th of 2019, you said that you took additional photographs?
Correct.
Is S340 a picture you took the following day?
Yes.
And do you see the area where the bullet defect we just looked at in the last picture is shown in this picture?
Yes.
Where is it?
If you look on the bottom where the AC unit is, right above it to the top left window pane.
And is S341 a closer up picture of that window?
Yes.
Detective, I'm drawing your attention back now to S264. Can you describe for the jury the process that you did with the flight path rod using S264 to assist you?
So because of the glass that had fractured, I was able to get an area convergence of the glass, basically following those lines back to where the defect entered. And from that moment, that was where I placed the rod. With the rod, I had used lasers to line up with the exit defect to get the flight path of the projectile.
So are you indicating that you had one flight path rod in the door and another one on the defect in the window?
No, just one was used.
And you were able to line it up with the laser?
Correct.
And what did the laser show you?
The laser showed me the flight path of the projectile going back as well as going forward outside of the residence.
And as far as inside the residence here in S264, did that bullet defect in the door match the same flight path as the bullet defect in the window?
All three defects correlated with each other.
Were you able to render opinions then based on the flight path of the projectile, based on your observations at the scene, as well as your shooting reconstruction?
Yes.
I'm showing you what's been marked as S390. What is S390 a diagram of?
That is a diagram of the flight path of the projectile.
And this is an overhead diagram of the flight path?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury where that flight path is in this picture?
It is between where the first target defect was on the door and the front of the red pickup truck.
Was that bullet defect at some sort of an upward or downward angle?
That was on an upward angle.
Meaning that which end of this line on S390 would be lower?
The front of the pickup truck.
And the end where it goes into the house is higher?
Correct.
And so what does that mean for where the barrel of the gun was at the time that the gun was shot?
In response to the shooting analysis, the front of the barrel was right where approximately where the front of the pickup truck was.
That it started at the front of the pickup truck?
Correct.
That, you're saying that's where the gun was at the time it was fired?
The front of the muzzle, yes.
The muzzle of the gun was at the base of the pickup truck?
Well,
when
the
it was fired?
trajectory of the flight path. Somewhere in between the front of the pickup truck and the door.
Are you able to give any opinion on the height of the muzzle of the gun when it was fired?
No.
And why is that?
We didn't have height or distance determination of any of anything to determine that.
So I guess, does that mean there were certain factors that you didn't know in this case to be able to assist you with that?
Correct.
Are you able to determine whether those shell casings that you discussed at the beginning are consistent with or connected to this bullet defect that you discussed?
No.
Why not?
Because with the casings, you can't determine what type of ammunition was fired into what created the defect.
Are all your opinions that you provided today within a reasonable degree of practical certainty?
Yes.
Judge, if I could just have the detective get down and just point to specifically what line. I don't think the color is necessarily exact there. That will be all right.
That's fine.
So detective, if you could just point out the line that you were indicating was the flight path you determined based on the bullet defects.
It would be between the door to the front of the pickup.
And that was at an upward angle from the direction of the truck into the house?
Correct.
Thank you, Judge. No further questions.
On
Yes.
cross-examination?
Now let's take notice. The judge did not interrupt one time. Not one time. So let's see how many times he interrupts with the defense.
How many shell casings were found at the scene?
2 shell casings were recovered.
Did you have a discussion with anyone prior to your analysis as to how many shots were allegedly fired?
I was advised that the victim had been shot twice, and then the third one to the door.
Now, the casings that are depicted on that diagram, you'll agree with me that there's really nothing you can tell with regards to their positioning, with regards to where the shots were fired.
Correct.
Because the casings could be disturbed prior to your arrival.
Correct.
Were you advised that there were 40, 50 people at the crime scene prior to your arrival?
I don't know the number, but I knew that there had been many people within the crime scene prior to my arrival.
Now, did you look for that third casing?
Yes.
No doubt when a bullet is fired that a casing goes along with it, correct?
Correct.
But in this particular instance, you or any other law enforcement person was not able to find that third casing, correct?
We were not.
Now, with regards to your analysis, when a bullet hits an object, the effect that that object has on the bullet varies with the type of substance it strikes, correct?
Correct.
In this particular instance, the bullet struck numerous different types of substances, correct?
Correct.
Wood, one, vinyl,
Correct.
And glass, correct?
Yes.
And would you agree with me that depending on the strength of those particular items, it affects the flight path of the bullet as it proceeds through the object?
It can, yes.
And again, your reconstruction, based on the rods that you used, indicated that the shot was fired from a position lower than the door, correct?
Correct.
And it was traveling in an upward angle as it went through the door through the second window in that laundry room, correct?
Correct.
But is it fair to say that you can't determine the exact flight path or the exact location where a bullet was fired from based on your analysis?
It's an approximate location based on where the backstrapulation of it was.
Understood. But for instance, with regards to this diagram, that bullet could have been fired from the front of the vehicle, correct?
Correct.
It could have been fired from the patio area here, correct?
Correct.
It could even be fired right here in front of the bush, correct?
Anywhere within that line, correct.
And even when, if someone was on their back firing the weapon, you can't determine the level at which the bullet was fired, correct?
In this situation, we couldn't determine the height.
So if someone was on the ground and fired the weapon, that would be consistent with your analysis, correct?
It would have had to been closer to the truck.
Correct. And again, you indicated that although you have an analysis regarding this flight path, it's an estimate and it could vary by a foot or so, depending on where the person was either standing or on the ground when they fired it, correct?
A small degree of error, but yes.
Now, depending on the surface that a bullet strikes, depends on how far the bullet is projected further, correct?
Can you repeat that?
If a bullet doesn't strike anything, it goes a certain distance, correct?
Correct.
And if it does strike something, depending on what it strikes, that lessens the distance because it goes through a particular type of substance, correct?
I can't determine the force of if that actually has happened in this situation, but I would assume when it strikes an object, some force is lowered from striking an object and continuing.
But in this particular instance, you have a bullet that travels a certain distance, goes through a window, wood, vinyl, scrapes up against a mat, and then continues through another piece of glass, correct?
Correct.
Were you told that Lauren Kanarek was shot twice and both those bullets exited out of the back of her body?
At the time, I did not know if the bullets had exited her body or were inside her body.
Okay. Well, if they did exit her body,
Correct.
they would travel a certain distance based on what, if anything, it hit as it went through her body, correct?
Correct.
I have nothing further. Thank you.
Judge, just to clarify that flight path, if I could.
Go ahead.
Detective, when you're talking about the flight path from the front of the truck there, is that the approximate area where you're saying that the gun barrel could have originated, the bullet shot?
Correct.
And so that would have been on the ground, for instance here, if this was under the truck?
Correct.
And then you're indicating that along that flight path, it goes at an upward angle into the door?
Yes.
So would it be something like what I'm doing right now with my pen? The gun would be somewhere along this flight path going up into the side of the house?
Correct.
And again, for the record, I think the demonstration is a little bit much taller than what.
Well, it's up to the jury to determine. That's what's relevant here.
Did I do that at the precise angle that you measured, Detective?
It was I believe, a 14-degree angle.
Did you determine that with the
What,
protractor?
hold on, what was a 14-degree angle?
The angle of the upward.
This one,
Yes,
on the screen,
correct.
not what Mr. Shellhorn did.
No.
Okay,
On
all
the
right,
screen.
just so we're clear. All right, it's 14-degree angle on the screen. Very good.
Thank you, Detective.
Detective,
Judge, thank you.
could someone have been standing on the deck of that front porch and been struggling and shot the bullet at that angle and created the defects that you testified to?
Again, if it was at a 14-degree angle and I couldn't determine the height determination.
Nothing further.
All right, you may step down.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Detective.
Thank you, sir.
But that was
Before
a
your next
complete
witness,
waste.
Mr. Shellhorn, please.
I'll defer to Mr. Bennett, Your Honor.
Your Honor, the state calls William Stitt, please.
All right, William Stitt. Hi, left hand on the Bible, please. Raise your right hand. Please listen to my court clerk.
Do you swear in the presence of Almighty God that the testimony given to this court regarding this matter shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Please state your name and spell your last name for the record.
Sure. My name is William Stitt. Last name is Stitt.
Thank you.
Very good. Have a seat, sir. Please keep your voice up nice and loud so everyone can hear you. We do have jurors in the first two rows. If you don't understand the question, please indicate that. I'll have counsel rephrase.
Yes.
Go ahead, prosecutor.
Thank you, Judge. Good afternoon, Mr. Stitt. How are you?
Good morning.
Where are you currently employed, sir?
Currently, I'm contracted with the Morris County Sheriff's Office,
And what position do you hold in the sheriff's office?
forensic examiner.
And how long have you been in the present role of forensic examiner?
Approximately 4 years.
And can you generally explain your duties as a forensic examiner within the sheriff's office?
Sure, I'm in charge of the firearms identification unit, both casework as well as training.
And what specific training and experience have you had prior to your work as a forensic examiner?
Prior to, I'm sorry, could you?
So repeat the question, prosecutor, please.
Sure, Judge. What training experience did you have prior to your work as a forensic examiner, your work experience in general?
Okay, I was trained in firearms examiner, firearms instructor. I attended two basic ballistics courses, one in Fort Dix, the other was hosted by the Jersey City Police Department. I also attended the serial number restoration course put on by the ATF. I attended a techniques and firearms identification with the FBI down in Quantico. Several armorers courses with all the big manufacturers, Glock, Smith & Wesson, H&K, Sig Sauer, Ruger, Remington. Also trained as a Nibin tech,
I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. As
a
a what?
Nibin technician.
All right, can you explain that,
Sure.
please?
NIBIN is the National Integrated Ballistics Information Network. They oversee IBIS, which is the Integrated Ballistics Identification System. Basically, it's a database. What they do is they take digital images, download them into the database, and they can cross-check different cases. What it does for us is it can relate cases that otherwise wouldn't be. So if we have a casing that's recovered up here, we put it into the system. If the gun was used in a different crime in a different county, different state, what it can do is it can match that for us.
And prior to your work as a contractor with the Sheriff's Office, were you previously a member of law enforcement?
Yes, sir.
And can you describe your longevity in that sense?
Sure. Before that, I was employed by the Morris County Sheriff's Office. I retired from the Morris County Sheriff's Office. I started in our corrections. I transferred to what we call the Bureau of Law Enforcement, worked here in courts and transportation. Did that for about 2 years. Then I transferred to our criminal identification section, which included our crime lab and our crime scene unit.
And how long were you in that role before retiring?
Approximately 19 years. Altogether, I'm sorry, altogether, sir, or
Altogether, yeah.
altogether 25 years.
And what's your highest level of education?
Masters.
During the course of your career, how many firearms have you examined?
I would say probably thousands between department weapons and casework.
And how many of those examinations were with regard to operability?
Probably, again, over 1,000.
Are you an active member of any professional organizations other than those you listed earlier?
Yes, sir.
And what are those?
One is the New Jersey Forensic Firearms Examiners Association. AFTI, which is the Association for Toolmark and Firearms Examiners, and also the International Law Enforcement Firearms Instructors.
And have you been previously qualified as an expert in firearms operability in the state of New Jersey?
Yes, sir.
Judge, the state moves to have William Stitt declared an expert in the field of operation of firearms and examinations.
Mr. Belinkas, do you have any questions relating to this witness's qualifications only at this point?
No.
All right. Do you have any objection to Mr. Stitt being qualified as an expert in firearms examination?
No.
All right. Have you previously testified as an expert in any courts in the state of New Jersey as an expert?
Yes, sir.
All right, in what court, sir?
I did 5 times. 4 of them were here in Superior Court, and 1 was municipal.
All right, very good. Under the circumstances, I will qualify Mr. Stitt as an expert in firearms examination based on his knowledge, skill, and experience and training as outlined. We will be allowed to render an expert opinion in the area of firearms identification. Go ahead, prosecutor.
Oh my God, cops are not experts. I don't care how much training, they're not gun experts. Get a fucking gun expert to say they're an expert. I've never seen a cop have gun experts, be gun experts. That's insane.
Mr. Stitt, can you explain to the jury what it means for a firearm to be operable?
That it goes bang, basically.
And when does it go bang, specifically?
Specifically, sure, it's after the trigger is pressed to the rear, discharging the weapon.
And can you generally give an overview of a general cycle of operation of a firearm?
For semi-automatic,
Sure.
each one was a little different. For semi-automatic, sure. The first would be feed, load, lock, fire, and unlock.
And now, based on your last response, I could assume that there are different types of firearms?
Yes, sir.
And can you explain the difference between a revolver versus a pistol?
Sure, both of them are handguns. Semi-automatic weapons or pistols work a little different than revolvers. The big difference would be for the semi-automatic pistols, it would be loaded with a magazine, whereas the revolver would be loaded through cylinder.
Okay. And can you explain what the term action means with regard to firearms?
I'm not sure what you mean, sir.
Specifically a double action, single action, can you explain what those mean and what the differences are?
Sure. If a weapon is single action or double action, single action would be just one action per press of the trigger. So the hammer would be back, the single action would be pressing the trigger would release the hammer or the firing pin. Double action, it'd be 2 actions. So basically that press of the trigger, it would cock the weapon and release the firing pin.
So just to clarify, with a single action firearm, the shooter would have to manually recock that hammer?
Yes,
Is
sir.
that accurate? And then pull the trigger to release that hammer?
Yes,
And these two type of actions can be present in revolvers, correct? There's single action revolvers and double action revolvers?
correct.
Can you explain the process of loading rounds into a revolver? And before you do, is there a more technical term for rounds that you would use?
Cartridges?
Okay. And would you say it's fair to say that a cartridge is commonly referred to in the public as a round or a bullet?
Yes.
Okay. So can you explain the process of loading cartridges into a revolver?
It depends on the revolver. Typically, we see two types. One revolver would have to be, the cylinder would have to be released, so you would hit the cylinder release. The cylinder would actually slide out, and then what you do is you'd manually load the 5 or 6 rounds, whatever it might be.
So typically revolvers, in your experience, are roughly 5 to 6 rounds generally?
Typically.
And what are the parts, moving back to a cartridge, which is the unexpelled round, correct?
Correct.
What are the parts of a cartridge? Can you explain this to the jury?
Sure. With the cartridge, there's basically 4 parts to it. There'd be the shell casing, which is basically the container that holds everything together. There would be a primer, which is basically like a fuse, if you think about it. There's the powder itself, and then the projectile or bullet.
Moving on to pistols specifically, are they loaded in a different way than the way you explained revolvers are loaded?
Yes,
And how is that done?
that's done through the magazine.
And can you explain what a magazine is to the jury?
Sure. The magazine would be the item that would hold the cartridges for the automatic, semi-automatic pistol.
And did the number of bullets that a firearm is capable of holding vary from firearm to firearm?
Yes, sir.
Now, giving us a broad overview, what's the steps of operability testing that you take procedurally when you test a firearm for operability?
Probability? Sure. First thing what we do is we take it out of evidence. We bring it back to our lab. First thing we do is photograph it overall. The reason why we photograph it is to show the condition that we received it in. Then we do a visual inspection. Visual inspection is just to make sure everything looks okay, nothing's bent, broken, the barrel's not obstructed, any safety issues that might come up. Then after that, what we'll do is, excuse me, we will test fire the weapon. We'll take 2 rounds from our supply, our ammo supply, load that weapon, and press the trigger.
Now, you said you test fire these weapons using ammunition from your supply, correct?
Yes, sir.
Is that always the case?
Yes, sir.
So if a firearm's turned into your office for exam and it comes with ammunition with it, you do not use that ammunition in tests?
We do not.
Okay, and what's the reason for that?
More our safety. We don't know if the other ammo is reloads. We don't know who made them. So it's more of a safety issue. If they does come in and they're reloads, if we do comparisons, that kind of messes up for our comparisons. So we want the factory loaded ammo.
Now, moving specifically to the case at hand, sometime in 2019, were you asked to examine firearms that were collected from 411 West Mill Road in the One Valley?
Yes, sir.
And do you recall what firearms you were asked to review during that case?
Sure. It was a Ruger LC9S, which was a 9mm semi-automatic pistol. There was a Colt Army 1917 revolver, a Colt Mark IV Series 80 semi-automatic pistol, and another revolver was a Frontier 22 caliber.
So you said there were 2 pistols and 2 revolvers?
Correct.
Thank you. Besides the firearms themselves, were any other items turned over to you for this examination?
Yes, sir.
And what were those items?
There was 2 magazines and 2 spent shell casings.
And did either of those magazines have cartridges within them?
Yes, sir.
And those cartridges were within the magazine when it was turned over to your office?
Correct.
You have envelopes in front of you. There's one marked S178. Do you see that?
170?
178.
170, yes, sir.
If you need gloves, there are gloves here on the floor beside you. I would ask you then remove the magazine from the envelope. And Judge, 178 has been entered into evidence previously.
Yes.
Do you have that out of the envelope?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Can you hold that up for the jury?
Certainly.
And if you could just remove your top fingers, I'm sorry.
Sure. Sorry.
Are there rounds within that magazine?
There are.
Okay. Or cartridges, rather?
Just cartridges.
Okay. And is the state of the magazine as you find it before you the same way that it was returned into you upon your examination?
Yes, sir.
And did you, during your examination, document how many rounds were within that magazine?
Yes, sir, I did.
Okay. And I will be showing you what's been marked as S360. Is this a close-up shot of the magazine as it was that day and as it is before you today?
Before we do that, Mr. Belinkus, do you have any objection to this item being marked into evidence? I don't believe.
No,
Was it-
no, Judge, and the prosecutor asked me, I told him.
All right. I don't think that was previously moved, but it'll be accepted into evidence. It's item S360. Thank you.
And Judge, I'll also be looking to move in S362, among others, but right now 362.
No, Judge.
Have you spoken to Mr. Belinkus about these items that you're going to move in?
We've
Yeah.
shown him all the pictures.
Yes, all right.
previously, yeah.
And no objection to these? Okay.
None.
And Mr. Stick, looking at what's been marked 362, do you see the rounds in that picture outside of the magazine?
Yes, sir.
And those rounds were removed by you during the examination?
Correct.
Okay, and how many rounds did you remove from the magazine?
7.
Okay, and again, that's how this magazine was presented to you from the sheriff's office as retrieved by the scene?
With the rounds in the
Inside the
magazine.
magazine.
Yes, sir.
Correct. Besides the two magazines, were any other items examined by your office?
Besides the handguns and the shell casings?
Shell casings, so that's what I'm referring to. With regard to the magazines and the shell casings, can you determine if they were related to any firearms that you examined?
The magazines and shell casings?
Separately, so can you determine based on what you see with the magazines if they belong to any specific firearm that you examined?
Yes, yes, sir.
And which firearm did the magazines belong to?
That was the Ruger LC9.
And looking specifically at the two shell casings that you examined, were those determined to be firearms?
Did we establish he looked at two shell casings? I know he said he looked at shell casings, but I'm not sure we established a number.
It's a good
So
question.
set the foundation first, please.
Yes, sir. Mr. Stitt, did you examine, how many shell casings did you examine during this examination?
2.
Okay. And before you have envelopes on your desk that have been previously moved into evidence, numbers 17. 1 second, Judge. Numbers S179 and 180.
Yes, sir.
Can you open those? And were those two shell casings you have in front of you the same as those you examined that day?
Yes, sir.
And which firearm in particular are these shell casings related to?
They match the Ruger LC9S.
Now, did you alter any reports as a result of your examinations?
Yes, sir.
And before you have two sheets of paper, should be on the table, they're marked S93 and S94.
Yes, sir.
And do you recognize those documents?
I do.
And what are those documents?
Those are my process reports.
And how do you know that?
It's signed by me.
And do they both fairly and accurately depict the reports that you authored on September 25th and December 18th?
Yes, sir.
Judge, these are just marked right. I don't want them entered into evidence. Thank you. Mr. Stitt, we'll speak specifically to the Ruger handgun. It should be on the floor next to you. It's been pre-marked S177, already entered into evidence.
177, sir?
Yes, sir. And do you recognize that firearm?
Yes, sir.
Is that the same firearm that you examined on September 25th, 2019?
Yes, sir.
And did you have the opportunity to examine that particular firearm with regards to operability?
Yes, sir.
Do you recall the serial number for that firearm?
I don't.
Okay. I'd ask you to refer to your report, which is marked S93, to refresh your recollection.
Judge, I have no objection to him reading the serial number.
I don't think there's any objection or question that that's the gun that was recovered in this case. Is there, Mr. Belinkus?
No.
No,
not at
no
all.
objection.
And during the course of your examination of that firearm, did you take photographs?
Yes, sir.
And I'm going to show you what's been pre-marked S353, 355, 356, and 357, which have not been offered for review.
Any objection to those, Mr. Belinkus?
No, you didn't. And Judge, can I move those into evidence at this time, please?
And what are the numbers again, sir?
353, 355, 356, and 357.
Sure. No objection by Mr. Belinkus. Those are in evidence.
Mr. Stitt, I will cycle through these photos one by one. Can you explain to the jury what you see in S353?
That is the Ruger LC9.
And is it fair to say that the state you see it in these pictures how is presented to you for examination?
Yes, sir.
And looking back at S353, is the slide lock back in this picture?
Yes, sir.
And what's the significance of that?
Of the slide being to the rear.
Correct.
In this case, it'd just be for safety issues.
And typically when a slide is locked back, what does that indicate to you about a firearm?
Either it's slid to the rear for a safety check, or when the weapon runs dry or shoots up all the ammo, it will or should lock to the rear.
Looking at 356, the firearm is now removed from the box, correct?
Yes, sir.
And 355, we see the close above the serial number, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now looking at S357, could you describe each part of the gun and its function?
Sure, we'd start from the top. The top section is called the slide, or referred to as the slide. What you'll see towards the rear of the slide is your rear sights. Towards the front would be your front sight. The part sticking out of the front would be your barrel. The bottom half would be the frame. Towards the back, you see the little notch in the slide. To the rear of that would be your thumb safety.
Judge, I would ask, can Mr. Stick come down and demonstrate with his hand where these parts are?
Yeah, you mean point it out on the screen? Certainly.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Again, the top mark, this would be our slide. The rear sight, the front sight, the barrel. The bottom part would be the frame. Towards the rear, this would be your thumb safety. This section here is for your slide lock. You have the grip, the trigger guard, and in the grip would be your magazine well.
And moving specifically to the part you identified as the slide lock, what's the significance of that part in particular?
The slide lock, again, it would be for a safety check to lock the slide to the rear, so you can do a visual check. Or again, when the firearm runs dry or fires all its ammunition and it's empty, that slide should lock to the rear.
And looking to the trigger, it looks like there's almost two triggers in this picture. Can you explain why it looks that way?
Sure, one is a trigger safety.
And can you explain what that means?
Sure. With this back part would be your trigger, the front would be the trigger safety. In order for that trigger to go to the rear, the first part would have to be depressed into the trigger.
And what's the purpose of that safety?
It's a safety, it's just so the trigger cannot be pulled or pressed to the rear.
You can return. Thank you. How do you load and unload this firearm particularly?
This particular one, with the magazine, would have to be loaded into the magazine well. Then the slide would have to be pulled to the rear. The slide would be released, and as the slide goes forward, it would load the next round.
And after having pointed out the parts on this gun, you did mention there's a safety on this gun, aside from the trigger safety, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
And does that have any effect on another step that may have to be taken before the gun is fired?
It can. If it's engaged, yes, you'd have to disengage the safety to fire the weapon.
Ultimately, as a result of your examination, was this firearm deemed to be operable?
Yes, sir.
How many cartridges or rounds can this pistol hold at one time?
This particular one has a 7-round magazine.
And how many can the weapon actually hold?
It would be 8.
And
It would be 7 in the magazine and 1 in the chamber.
And you testified this pistol?
Yes, sir.
You testified earlier that shell casings are ejected from a firearm, correct?
Correct.
And that's after a shot or a discharge?
Yes.
With regards to empty shell casings that are ejected, is there a particular side that they usually eject from?
Typically, it's to the right side of the firearm.
And when you say the right, what orientation are we referring to?
As the shooter.
Okay, so it would be the shooter's right.
Correct.
On this particular handgun, which side of the gun is the ejection port on?
On the right side.
Do firearms leave specific marks on shell casings when they are fired?
Yes, sir.
And can you explain what markings are typically left by a firearm on shell casing?
Sure. Typically, with the with semi-automatic weapons, what we're looking for is several things. They'll leave impressions from the firing pin, from what's called the breech face, which is the part back towards the rear of the slide, and chamber marks. So when the empty casing gets extracted from the weapon, it can scratch on the walls of the chambers and create unique characteristics or stria.
And after your test fires, you also then have shell casings, is that correct?
Correct.
So are you able to then compare shell casings from your test fires to shell casings from the ones turned into you for examination?
Yes, sir.
And you're able to can you describe the process of how those are compared?
Certainly. The way we do it, we take our 2 test fires from when we did the operability of the weapon. We'll put them on our comparison microscope. We will compare those, looking for unique characteristics left behind from the weapon. We'll do our test fires first, and then we'll use the casings that we've collected from the scene.
And again, you were given what's been marked as S179 and 180 for examination?
Yes,
And were you able to determine whether those shell casings were fired from any particular handgun?
yes, sir.
Which gun was that?
That was the Ruger LC9.
And during the course of your investigation, or your examination rather, you took photographs?
Yes, sir.
And among those photographs are the ones we've seen so far?
I'm sorry, sir?
Among those photographs were the ones we've viewed so far?
Yes, sir.
And do those photographs fairly and accurately depict the photographs that you took on September 25th, 2019?
Yes, sir.
Judge, I'd like to admit those 4 photographs into evidence.
On the numbers again, please?
Sure. 353, 356, 355, and 357.
I thought we already moved those in.
We just
Before.
moved them in a few moments ago.
Yeah, they're in evidence.
Thank you. Moving on to December 18th of 2019, did you conduct another examination?
Yes, sir.
And are the firearms you examined in that time period reflected in your report, which has been pre-marked as S94?
Yes, sir.
And you could return the Ruger box to the floor. Mr. Stewart, thank you. If you could retrieve from those pile of boxes what's been pre-marked S200, already in evidence? And can you open that box, please? Do you recognize that firearm?
Yes, sir.
And is that one of the firearms you examined on December 18th of 2019?
Yes, sir, it is.
Is it fair to say, what are the parts of that gun and the function of each? Is it comparable to the gun that you just explained?
Yes, sir. This is it's a semi-automatic pistol.
And can you hold the box up for the judge so they can see which one we're referring to?
Sure.
And how do you load and unload this firearm?
Same as we discussed on the prior weapon.
And was there a magazine submitted with this firearm?
Yes, sir, there was.
And how many rounds or cartridges did that magazine hold?
This one also holds 7.
Did you... Okay. And were any rounds submitted within that magazine or handgun?
No, sir, I believe it was empty.
And did you have the opportunity to examine this firearm for operability?
Yes, sir.
And was the firearm ultimately determined to be operable?
No, sir, it was not.
What made this firearm inoperable?
During our visual inspection of it, it was determined that the pistol was missing both the firing pin and the extractor.
And I know you've mentioned firing pins before. Can you explain briefly to the jury what a firing pin is and what it does?
Sure. The firing pin is the part that makes contact with the primer. Remember, the primer is kind of like the fuse. The firing pin is what strikes the primer.
And why won't a handgun fire without a firing pin?
Because without the firing pin, nothing would be making contact with the primer.
And during the course of your examination of this particular gun, did you take photographs also?
Yes, sir.
Judge, I'd like to,
Mr. Bennett, you'll be a little while longer on direct?
yes, Judge.
Fine. It's after 3 now. We'll take our afternoon recess and then we'll pick up in about, at about 3:20 or so. All right, thank you. You can step down, sir.
Thanks, sir.
All right. Just wait outside. Just stay down this end, all right? Sir?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
I hope the rest of the trial is not boring. Judge is a jerk, that we know. So the dad is Jonathan. And I can't find out what he did. Maybe I heard he was a lawyer somewhere. I don't know, but maybe I'm wrong. But it doesn't really say what he does or what he did. Some comments from you be good? I don't know. What do you guys think so far? Boring trial is why God gave us live chats. That's a good point. Excellent point. Her dad was a lawyer. Is there proof of this at all? Because it says that the house he's living in, he's only been in there for a year. Oh, in the trial they discussed Lauren's dad, the attorney, giving her advice. Okay. It'll be interesting to see who the defense puts on the stand. That's what I'm interested in. Now, he wasn't his original attorney either. He had a different attorney at first. Oh. It was said on record that that is an attorney. Okay. Then that's where I heard it from. I knew I heard it from somewhere. And people saying that I told people that, so I had to hear it from somewhere. It's not something I made up. Alright, let's see what the poll turned out. Alright, so Pearl said, no, the judge is making it hard. Yes, he's guilty. The jury has to see... Yeah, I agree with that. Jury has to see corruption. Let's go, yes, defense is weak. It seems weak. But I don't know when he came on the case either, though. And the reason I say that is, from what I saw, it looked like he just moved into this place within the last year. So if he moved in within the last year, something's up with that. It's just crazy. I just don't know how the judge can be like the prosecutor. I've never seen this before. No. The Lauren's father, the place he's living now in Livingston, New Jersey, he just moved there a year ago. I give defense counsel too much credit. In a way I do, but I don't know. I think he's doing a good job of not cursing out the judge, because I think I would have cursed the judge out. Like, you guys heard me yesterday. I would have been like, dude, I'm trying to build a case here. Hello? Her defense said he has like 12 witnesses. I hope so. No, Michael Barisone is the killer. The dad is now living in Livingston for the last year. But like every time he tried to do something right, he couldn't do it. Judge stopped him. That's what I'm saying. This is why I shouldn't be a lawyer, because I would curse a judge. I'd be like, you've got to be fucking kidding me, dude. That's why I don't know if I'd be a good attorney. They do need to grow a backbone. I'm trying to put myself in the position of the attorney. And the attorney, he keeps getting any angle he tries to take, he keeps getting shot down by the judge. So when he, like I said yesterday, he's trying to build a case showing that they're not credible and the judge won't allow it. Then he tries to show a case where they're lying. Judge doesn't allow it. Then he tried to show where the two victims have led Michael to this point. The judge won't allow it. Then he, even this morning, he was trying to say that, hey, look, you agreed that you guys would live there for free. And I could see what he was doing. Like, you guys live there for free based on what would have been charged, a couple of $1,000 a month. So you're going to do work for them. That's how it was supposed to go down. And then the judge stopped it. Like, every single thing he does, the judge stops it. That may be why I feel like I'm giving him more credit, because I haven't seen this lawyer before, but maybe the lawyer knows that if he says anything to the judge or objects or anything, it's going to get shot down. That's what I'm thinking. Because I can't imagine why a top-rated attorney is this weak. Like, I almost want to call him and be like, dude, what are you doing? No, jury's not sequestered. Like, what are you doing? Go after him. Why didn't you say you said yesterday, blah, blah, blah? Because I didn't even write notes, and I know that there were things he said that weren't what he said yesterday. And he didn't jump on that. I don't understand. He's a very expensive off. Exactly right, Deanna. Probably because she's 41. She was 39 at the time. And how much is daddy going to help her? He's a very expensive attorney, exactly. Do you feel the judge? Oh, judge is way harder on the defendant by tenfold. Two-nut job, heads around circles on him. Charge a cross-exam. Yeah, but Lindsay, part of that is the judge. Very least call for judge to recuse. Yeah. See, the problem with the judge recusing themselves, and I learned this firsthand, when a judge recuses himself, the next judge that comes in could be their friend and totally fucking annihilates the person. You know what I mean? It's not always better to recuse a judge. Nikki, I'm covering the whole trial. I'm like totally not getting any work done. But hopefully the trial's boring and I won't want to sit in front of my computer. Love you too, Sandra. I mean, this is a pretty high-profile trial, and the prosecution feels so secure that they're letting this fresh out-of-college kid talk, do it. That says a lot. Nope, you missed that. No, I'm still going to run it. I'm just saying, like, I have a pile of clothes on my bed I need to fold. That kind of stuff. My daughter's boyfriend's senior prom is tomorrow, so I got to get the house ready for pictures. And I'm redoing my whole candle studio. I own my own candle company, which I have to get to the post office today. Thank God they close it. The trial usually ends at 3:30. But I got to get to the post office today. I got to get Dayton's medicine. I wonder if Judge is related state. I don't know. It's pretty crazy, though. Corruption is real. Defense clearly knows at this point what will trigger the judge, but they won't adapt. He's giving them the same reasoning every time. He's not getting a fair trial. I mean, even if he loses, he'll win. No, next year, Marty. They're in 11th. Dayton's finger's all right. Yeah, I'm redoing the website and stuff. I'm in the process of redoing I'm redesigning my whole studio, redesigning the website. So much stuff. And what have I done all week? I've sat in front of here. But I have candles I got to get out. I got more candles I got to make. If you look on my community post, you can see part 1 and part 2 of Operation Redo. I'm just rebranding everything. Different look, different everything. Well, not totally different. My wax is still the same. My amazing candles are still awesome. I still can't believe the judge shut down long crime chat. That's so weird. So weird. Defendant wins. Maybe he will be able to reopen. I don't know. See, I don't think he can, though. Because, thanks, Karen. I don't know if he can, though, Robin, because technically he did shoot. I mean, he did shoot her. That's a given. But it's why he shot her that they're fighting. He was reading our chat. I think he was. He can come read my chat. I'll tell you what a fucking asshole you are, Judge. You're biased, you're mean, and you're an asshole. And guess what? I'll never be in Jersey for you to convict me. So there's that. Watch, I get arrested in Jersey or something. That'd be my luck. Get pulled over in Jersey and I go in front of that judge. She'd be like, I remember you. You're the YouTuber that called me an asshole. I think it wasn't me, Judge. It was my chat. I'm telling you. Crazy. I'm telling you, I've just never seen it like that. I've never seen them do it. He was reading a comment and I said, hey, Honorable Judge, pay more attention to defense instead of YouTube. Exactly. Yeah, notice he's scribbling a lot less. It takes a New Yorker to talk smack to a New Jersey. Exactly, Toby. I do, Raven. I actually have a bunch of lavender. I didn't add the new scents on, but I just got a few new scents for lavender. I got lavender energizer. I got lavender and bergamot. I got lavender wow, which is lavender mint, and lavender stress relief, and some brand new luxury scents. And all the candles, all the newer candles are infused with crystals, real rocks, like genuine stones, not semi-precious stones. And that's what I'm changing over to. I'm changing the whole company over to a metaphysical company. A metaphysical candle company. So it takes time with, I'm a single mom of 3 kids, everything. I have a lot of scents for men. Bergamot is a good one. Bergamot and sandalwood is a great man scent. But I have over like 200 scents. I have tons for men and women. And then in between. Metaphysical means it's infused with crystals. I have Old Spice. Zelda's Ghost members, you guys get a discount. It's members 10 if you're on the regular tier, and then 15 if you're on a higher tier for members. And then Patreons get 25. Old Spice is old. No, the Old Spice candles smell good. But I'm going to be doing a huge push for candles once I get everything organized. Oh, have you seen them shut down sections? I've never seen them shut down sections. I have this, what is it called? Save Me Savage or something? I don't know. I have to look. And that's like a man's cologne. It's okay, KTB. Yeah, the Old Spice candles smell, the Old Spice smells just like the cologne. So does the baby powder. Baby powder smells really good. Brute. I don't have a Brute. I got in a Bombshell, the Victoria's Secret one. I got that in. A lot of it. I ordered it for a wholesale order, and then they canceled. Well, congratulations, Booberry. Welcome to the higher ups. I ordered for a wholesale order that ended up backing out. So now I have like 24 ounces of Bombshell. Well, Karen, I actually ordered the Old Spice for somebody, a sub of mine. I haven't seen her in a while, whose father died, and she wanted that scent. That's why I ended up ordering it in the first place. And then when I made it, I was like, wow, this really does smell like Old Spice. So it ended up being a memorial candle. Oh, I have tons of lilac. That's another, that was in this wholesale order. It's another one I have about 24 ounces of. I'll have to look for Rapture. Yeah, I'll show you guys something. Hold on. Oh, I didn't post. Oh, I did post it, I thought. Yes, I didn't post it. I could have sworn I did. Hold on. Ah.
You may have a seat, sir. You're a man under oath. Go ahead, Mr. Bennett.
Mr. Stitt, we left off at, well, we were about to view some photos of that white handgun that you have in front of you. So I'll be showing you what's been marked as S370, 371, 373, and 374.
Ladies and gentlemen, at the break, the court and counsel did discuss certain additional photographs that were moved into evidence. No objection by the defense, and the court accepted those. So those are 363, 365, 367, and 368, 370, 371, and 373 through 376. Those were all admitted into evidence. Go ahead, Mr. Bennett.
Thank you. Mr. Stitt, S370, as it appears on your screen, is how the gun was presented to you at the time of the examination, correct?
Yes, sir.
I will skip 371, as it is the same gun removed from the box, correct?
Yes, sir.
Now, looking at S373, what does this photo depict?
That's a view looking down the slide to the where the firing pin should be.
And can you demonstrate or explain to us where the firing pin should be in this picture?
Sure. If we look down the top part of the slide, you'll see the circle in the back, kind of in the center. That's just an empty hole. That would be where the firing pin would protrude.
And looking now to S374, what is the hole we see in the center of this picture, within the barrel in the center, right there?
The one we're looking at, there's the two holes. The one on the right would be your firing pin hole or aperture.
And what's the hole on the left?
That would be where the extractor would be.
And you had stated earlier that both of those were missing from this firearm,
Correct.
making it inoperable.
Correct.
Okay. You could return that box down to the floor, please, and if you could retrieve what's been marked S199, already in evidence. You could open that box, sir. Do you recognize that firearm?
Yes, sir.
And is that one of the firearms you examined on December 18th, 2019?
Yes, sir, it is.
And the last two firearms that you identified, which were S177 and S200, those were both semi-automatic pistols, as you described?
Correct.
And is this a different style of handgun?
Yes, sir, it is.
And what style would that be?
The revolver.
And can you hold that box up for the jury so they know which weapon we're talking about?
Yes, sir.
Everybody see that?
And looking to what's been marked as S367, is that the same firearm you see before you?
Yes, sir.
And can you describe the parts, each part and its function of this firearm? And you could feel free to come down and judge if that's okay, if you could point at the screen.
Sure.
All right, help me out here because I'm a little lost. The only gun that I don't understand how all these guns are evidence. The only gun was the one he shot them with. What is all this other guns? What's all this other stuff? I'm a little confused. So if someone could help me out, because these guys are like my ADHD, I'm tuning them out. So if someone could help me understand, that would be great. Hey, Anita.
At the top, this would be your barrel. Front sight, a little hard to say. The rear sight is actually behind the zip tie. This would be your grip panel, your back strap. That would be your hammer. This part here is the cylinder release. This part is the cylinder, the ejector rod, and this part is where it swings out. It's called the crane. We have our trigger and our trigger guard.
And I believe you mentioned before, but can you just walk the jury quickly through how you load this firearm specifically?
Certainly. What you'd have to do is pull this to the rear, the cylinder would swing out, then you'd be able to load the cylinder.
And how many rounds does this firearm in particular hold?
Okay, last time I'm going to stop it. But for all my gun people in here, aren't guns like tattoos? Once you get one, you get 5. So if that's what they're trying to prove, that he had a lot of guns, that's a really weak argument, because I don't know anyone that just owns one gun. If they own one, they get like 12. So I don't get this whole thing.
And we could return to your seat, Mr. Stick. And did you have the opportunity to examine that firearm for operability?
Yes, sir.
And was that firearm submitted with any ammunition in it or with it?
No, sir.
Was that firearm ultimately determined to be operable?
Yes, sir, it was.
And that was done using ammunition that you have from your supply in the lab?
Correct.
And during the course of your examination, you took photos of this firearm?
Yes, sir.
And one of those photos is what's been shown to you is 367?
Yes, sir, it is.
And is S368 the same firearm removed from the box?
It is.
Right, you could return that box to the ground, please. And if you could retrieve the last box, which has been marked S201, which is early evidence.
$201, sir?
201, yes. You could open the box, sir. Do you recognize that firearm that's before you?
Yes, sir.
And is that also one of the firearms you examined on December 18th, 2019?
Yes, sir, it is.
And I'm going to show you what has been marked as S375. Is that the firearm that you have before you?
Yes, sir, it is.
And that depicts the way it was presented to you during examination?
Yes, sir.
Are the parts on this firearm generally the same as the firearm we just viewed?
Yes, sir, it is.
Are there any differences between the two of those revolvers?
Yes, sir.
And what difference would that be?
In the way you would load it.
Okay. And Judge, I would ask just to show the difference, if Mr. Stick can come down and point to the different piece of this firearm that makes it unique.
Go ahead, you may step down, sir.
The previous revolver, you used the cylinder release. With this one, it's a fixed cylinder. What you'd have to do is, there's a little tap here, it's called a gate. What you do is open that gate, and you would load the cylinder one at a time. You would load it, you'd have to spin it, load it again, rotate that cylinder until they were all full.
And how many rounds does this particular gun hold?
6 rounds.
And what caliber round is this?
This one is a 22 caliber.
And earlier you had mentioned, or I'd asked you a question rather, regarding actions. What action does this revolver have?
This one I believe is a single action.
And can you remind the jury what that means regarding trigger pulls?
Sure. And for the trigger pull, it'd be one action. So one pull of the trigger would release the firearm.
And in order to do another shot, what would you have to do to that gun?
You would have to cock the hammer.
On each shot?
Yes, sir.
And you can return to your seat, I'm sorry. Did you also have an opportunity to review this firearm with regard to operability?
Yes, sir.
And was this firearm determined to be operable?
Yes, sir, it was.
Was this firearm presented to you with any ammunition at the time of testing?
No, sir.
And you utilized your own supply to test fire this weapon?
That's correct.
And did you take photographs during your examination besides the one we see on the screen?
Yes, sir.
Is S376, as it appears before you, the photo you took during examination after removing that firearm from the box?
Yes, sir, it is.
Just give me 1 second, Your Honor.
Certainly.
Mr. Stitt, I'm going to show you 2 pictures that you took side by side, and we've previously seen already. I'm showing you what's been marked as S357 and S371. These are 2 of the firearms that we already discussed that you examined, correct?
Yes, sir.
And while they look the same, do they function in a similar capacity to each other?
They do.
And when I say that, what I mean is, are the same general steps taken to fire each of these?
Yes, sir.
However, the one on the right was determined to be inoperable, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
No further questions, Judge.
All right, cross-examination, Mr. Belinkus?
That gun to the right that you just saw, that's the one that's inoperable, correct?
Yes, sir.
You have no idea how long that gun has been inoperable, do you?
No, sir.
You testified that the .45 was operable, correct?
Yes, sir.
And is that a much larger caliber handgun?
Yes, sir.
Much more deadly because of the size of the bullet?
Not
Objection.
necessarily, sir.
I'll withdraw. No
Yeah,
further
please
questions.
do. Sustained. All right, any follow-up, Mr. Bennett? Redirect, I mean?
No, Judge, I think we're fine.
All right, you may step down. Thank you very much. Can I see counsel at the bench, please?
See, as soon as he starts asking questions, he gets shut down. It's crazy. Okay, they're all laughing. Well, they were partners. Like, she had a big vested interest in the farm. And she had horses there. Like, they shared a horse or something. They're all planning a golf outing after here. Yeah, where are we playing golf? Oh, I do too, Lindsay.
All right, members of the jury, we are going to break now. I know it's a little bit early. It's 3:35 currently. There's a couple reasons for that. Number one, it's Friday. That's the most important reason. I want you all to get an early start on your weekend. And the case has progressed very nicely. I'm satisfied with the pace of the case. It's actually moved a little quicker than I had anticipated. Because of those reasons, I think it's a good time to break. the state anticipates finishing their presentation of evidence, their case, on Monday. Maybe in the morning, maybe early afternoon, it depends. But the state's going to finish on Monday, and then shortly thereafter, we'll start the defense case. All right, so you've heard some evidence, certainly from the stand, but not the whole case. So please, it's important at this juncture not to discuss the case among yourselves or with anyone else. That only happens when you hear all the evidence and you retire to deliberate on the case. So with those brief comments, have a nice weekend, everyone. We'll see you Monday morning, same time. Thank you. Enjoy your weekend.
I want to see if they're going to fight again.
Just stay on for a minute.
All right, we might have a fight again.
So, Mr. Shellhorn, have all your witnesses here Monday morning so we can try to
Should I have
finish
my
it.
witnesses at 1:30?
Yeah, I would. You have some lay witnesses to call before you get to the experts? Or you're gonna
Oh,
put?
yeah, I have a number of police officers who will be real quick and other lay
Fine.
witnesses.
Yeah, but why don't you, whatever order you want, but maybe the police officers would be a good place to start in the afternoon?
Judge, I know that Mr. Boingus has been working with Mr. DeFrancisi about getting those witnesses lined up, but if I could just ask to be notified who they anticipate calling on Sunday, just so I'm prepared.
Okay, and also, I was planning on serving the subpoena on Edward David this weekend.
Damn, that's it. They cut it. So the last couple of days, whenever it ended or whenever something like that happened, they were fighting, and they're not. Yes, I can make lilac candles. I can make lilac mixes. I can make anything. I wouldn't let a defense lawyer defend me on a parking ticket, let alone a murder trial. I'm telling you. Exactly. Thank you, Law and Crime, for getting shut down. You know what? It's funny that you say that, Zulu, because I thought that yesterday. I'm like, what a childlike seal. It's not even like professional. So, all right, since we are ending, I am out. I have so much to do, and I have done nothing. So I'm glad the judge ended early. Thank you, Your Honor. It's the one good thing you did right. Okay, so 8 o'clock tonight, let me give you guys a little background. For those of you that have not been, that don't know me or haven't followed me, I do have a bunch of haters. And my haters have ruined multiple interviews for me. So I will no longer announce who I'm interviewing before it happens. What I can tell you is I am interviewing a mother of a missing kid who's been missing for almost 30 days. It's not really getting the coverage that it needs to. The reward money is only a couple $1,000s, which I told the mom it needs to get much higher. So there's a lot of very small creators working on it, and I'm one of the bigger creators working on it. And the mom is heartbroken, and I completely understand. And I'll speak to you guys about it more later, but that's what's happening. Yeah, it's Stephen Avery, I wish. Ken Kratz. So if you're interested in missing people and that kind of stuff, then you would like it. What I will tell you, and those of you that have known me for a while know this, and this is not a money grab or anything, let me explain. When I do interviews, most of the time, because of the assholes, most of the time I do it on members only. It's like one of the perks for members. It's not a pre-recorded. I'm going to be live with her. I don't know if she knows how to use a link, but I told her I'd walk her through it. So it is going to be live, but I do the chat members only. Everyone can watch it, but it is members only for chat. It keeps away the trolls and it keeps away the assholes. So I apologize for that. A higher amount would because when you hear the story, you'll understand it. You will definitely understand it when you hear the story. So again, everyone is free to watch it, but members and Patreons are the ones that can chat. And that's just because of all the assholes. That is tonight, 8 p.m. And after she's done, then I'll open it up to everybody. No, I know what they're saying, Nikki. I do. But you will definitely understand why that could make a difference after you hear the whole story. So that's it. I will see you guys later. Have a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful day. For the rest of you, I'll see you guys at 8 o'clock. Hopefully I have enough time to do my makeup and hair. If not, you guys are going to see me in a ponytail. So I'll see you guys tonight, 8 o'clock. Peace. 8 p.m. Central Time. And if you're a Patreon and you're not a mod, let me know and I'll make you a mod for tonight. All right? I will see you guys later.